Hello, today we are going to solve March 2021. This is the latest exam in the Cambridge series, paper 4. Let's start with question number 1. Figure 1.1 is a diagram showing the position of some organs in the human body. Some of the organs shown are endocrine glands. The table shows some of the names of some of the glands, their identifying letters, and the hormones they produce. The first question wants you to complete the table. Type, it's easy. Letter C, the gland above the kidney is the adrenal gland. Which hormone does it produce? It produces adrenaline. The second one, he gave me the hormone produced, which is insulin. I know that insulin is produced from the pancreas, and the pancreas is E. It looks a bit like the leaf. And then we have the testis. Name of the endocrine gland is the testis. Which letter? It is letter D, and it produces the testosterone hormone, which is responsible for the secondary sexual characteristic in males. Question B. Figure 1.2 shows two graphs representing the relative blood concentration of two hormones, the concentrations of the hormones in the blood that is released by the ovaries, and the thickness of the lining of the uterus. طيب, we know that the menstrual cycle is divided into two phases. In the first phase, which is the first 14 days, مين الهرمون? Which hormone increases in the first 14 days? Hormone estrogen. While in the second 14 days, the hormone that increases is the progesterone. Okay, and this is what happens in the lining. The lining, the thickness decreases at the beginning of the cycle, and this is the menstruation, which is the loss of blood, and then it begins to increase, and then here it stays a constant. Let's see the question back. Describe the role in the menstrual cycle of hormone A. We just agreed that the hormone that increases in the first 14 days is the estrogen hormone. So mark number 1 is for me to tell him that hormone A is estrogen. But what is the role of the estrogen? Number 1, it helps to build the lining of the uterus. So here, as you can see, as the hormone is increasing, the lining or the thickness of the lining is also increasing. يبقى estrogen builds the lining of the uterus, the number 1. And the second thing, which is very important, it inhibits FSH secretion. It stops further FSH from being secreted. طب ليه? Why does this happen? In order to prevent the development of multiple eggs at the same time. ال FSH ده بيstimulate the development of the eggs. So, in order to prevent the development of multiple eggs, when there is estrogen, FSH is stopped. Type. What else? It also stimulates the LH بقى. ال LH ده بيعمل ايه؟ Stimulates ovulation. يبقى since at the beginning of the cycle, there is one egg being developed inside the ovary. When the estrogen is secreted, it prevents the FSH to prevent further eggs, while it stimulates ال LH hormone اللي بيشجع ال ovulation, which happens around day 14. Okay, state the day when ovulation is most likely to occur. We can choose بقى أي حاجة starting from 12 to 16, anything from 12 to 16, but mainly we usually say that it occurs in day 14, which is the middle of the cycle. State the days in figure 1.2. Careful in هو he specified he wants it from the figure. when the lining is lost from the body. When was the lining lost? It started to decrease from here to here. So I want it from day 0 to day 6. This is where the lining was lost. The female contraceptive pill is a chemical method of birth control which is available in many countries. Describe the social implications. Implications means the consequences. ايه اللي هيحصل? What happens when you take the pills? But not what happens in general, no. What happens socially? Socially. What are the social implications? Number 1, low birth rate. Contraceptive pills will decrease reproduction rate. So we have low birth rate. Number 2, people can choose when to have a baby according to their circumstances. Financially, are they working, can they support a family? So they can choose when to start a family. Number 3, since they can choose, therefore we will decrease the number of abortions. The people who get pregnant with an unwanted baby, the number of the people who get pregnant with unwanted babies decrease, so we will decrease the number of abortions. ممكن بقى اقول له ان increase in the number of females working because they can control when to get pregnant and when not to. So these are the effects that happens socially in the social relationships with other people. Okay, the hormones in the female contraceptive pills can enter the river. الهرمونز can enter the river. Describe the negative impact of the female contraceptive hormones entering the river and contaminating the drinking water. When these hormones are excreted in the urine, and then the urine goes to the sewage. If the sewage is not treated and it is thrown as it is in the river, it affects the organisms. How is this? Feminization of the aquatic organisms. الهرمونز دي affects the male fish. It reduces the sperm count of the male fish and so decrease in the population of fish or aquatic organisms in general. But what about when the hormones contaminate the drinking water? Not only the fish will be affected, but there will also be a reduction in the sperm count of human males. Triple I. State 2 barrier methods of contraception. The word barrier means that there is a structure separating between the female fluids and the male fluids. طب what are the barrier methods? ممكن condom, ممكن femidem, okay? These are the and ممكن also diaphragm. Diaphragm is also a barrier as it prevents the sperms from reaching the ova. Question number 2. Figure 2.1 is a diagram of a prokaryotic cell. State one visible feature that identifies this as a prokaryotic. What makes me say that this is a prokaryotic cell? I can say plasmid or loop of DNA, no nucleus هنا, okay? So what is the feature visible? What is the feature visible that makes me identify that this is a prokaryotic cell? When he asks you a visible feature, tell him something that is present. Don't say no nucleus. I cannot see no nucleus is something that is not visible. It's not there. I want a feature that I can see that makes me say that this is a prokaryotic cell. فقلت البلازميد أو loop of DNA. State one cell structure that is present in the cells of all organisms. Cytoplasm, cell membrane, these are present in all living organisms. Prokaryotes, animals and plants are 3 of the 5 kingdoms. What are the other 2? We have protoctist and a fungus. Protoctist and fungus. Question C. Figure 2.2 shows parts of the nitrogen cycle. I told you before, the most important thing in the nitrogen cycle is to know the name of each process and know what are the products of this process. يعني إيه؟ In the nitrogen cycle, we have 4 processes: decomposition, nitrogen fixation, nitrification, and denitrification. I should know in the decomposition, the proteins are converted to ammonia. In the nitrogen fixation, nitrogen gas in the atmosphere is converted into ammonia. In the nitrification, ammonia is converted to nitrates, while in the denitrification, nitrates goes back to being a nitrogen gas. So here, in these letters, we have dead organisms, they became nitrates. يبقى A is a combination of 2 processes. It is decomposition and nitrification. الديكomposition الأول, it converted the proteins into ammonia, and then the nitrification converted ammonia to nitrates. Type C, nitrates became nitrogen gas. Nitrates became nitrogen gas, so this is denitrification. Nitrogen gas in the atmosphere is converted into to nitrates in the soil. This is a nitrogen fixation. It was ammonia and then nitrates. This is طالما حاجة في الair and then it became in the soil, يبقى ده nitrogen fixation. كأنك ثبت النيتروجين في السويل. The question بقى, describe process A, B, and C. Very easy. This was an easy exam. احنا قلنا ان A, it is decomposition and nitrification. If you write decomposition only or nitrification only, it will also be correct. Decomposition, where the proteins in the dead body is converted into ammonia. Nitrification, where the ammonia is converted into nitrates. Okay, this is A. What about B? B, it is nitrogen fixation. Don't tell him بقى where the nitrogen is converted to nitrate. طب this is what you can see in the diagram, so you have to write another point other than this. How is it converted? How is it converted into nitrates? How does the nitrogen fixation happens? Either by nodular bacteria, the bacteria in the roots of some plants, or by lightning. يبقى هنا قلت ايه؟ nodular bacteria or by lightning. C. Nitrate ions return to the atmosphere as nitrogen. This is denitrification, where it is converted to nitrogen gas. But this is not to be considered 1 mark because it's already in the diagram. So I have to tell him another point. Where does this happen? Denitrification requires waterlogged soils. طيب remember كده. In the nitrification, the ammonia is converted into nitrites and then nitrates. So it is an oxidation process. We added oxygen. Therefore, nitrification needs a well-aerated soil. Well-aerated soil, there should be enough oxygen in the soil to allow the nitrification. However, denitrification, nitrates are returned to nitrogen gas, so we remove the oxygen. It is a reduction reaction. Since we want to remove the oxygen, this occurs in anaerobic conditions. Anaerobic condition معناها ايه؟ ان there is no air in the soil. It is full of water. This is the waterlogged soils. Double I. State the name of the process that the plants use to absorb nitrate. Nitrate is a mineral, so it is absorbed by active transport. Question 3. The activity of a heart can be monitored using different methods. Figure 3.1 shows two ECG traces. One trace was recorded when the person was at rest and the other one during exercise. The length of the time taken for one heartbeat is indicated. Okay, let's see. هنا قال لي this is one heartbeat اهي. Every wave is one heartbeat. يبقى دي one heartbeat, one heartbeat, one heartbeat وهكذا. طيب, and this is during exercise. Estimate the resting heart rate. Resting heart rate. He wants you to know how many beats per minute during rest. How do I do this? طيب, هنا you have the time. So what will you do? You will say there is 1, 2, 3, 4 heartbeats. 4 heartbeats in 2.8 seconds. 4 heartbeats in 2.8 seconds. طب how many heartbeats in 60 seconds, which is 1 minute? You will cross multiply 60 times 4 divided 2.8. You will get 85.7 heartbeats per minute. You can round it up, okay, because it's a counted number, so it will be 86 beats per minute. This is how you know the heart rate from the ECG. Double I. Explain why the ECG trace recorded during exercise differs from the one recorded at rest. Why here is different from here? As you can see, during exercise we have more heartbeats in the same time. طيب, يبقى what will I say بقى? During exercise there is an increased heart rate. Why is this? Because the muscles need more energy for more muscle contraction. So the muscle makes more respiration. Therefore, it needs more oxygen and glucose, which is carried by the blood. Why else? Why else do we have a faster heart rate? In order to remove the waste carbon dioxide that was produced from respiration. يبقى order your answer كده. احنا during exercise we need more energy. Where does the energy come from? Respiration. What does the respiration need? It needs more oxygen, more glucose, which is carried by the blood. So we need more blood flow. At the end, you can also say that the heart rate increases so that we can remove the waste carbon dioxide that was produced from respiration. So just one other way of monitoring the activity of the heart. He gave me the ECG already, so I can tell him the two other methods, which are counting the pulse rate or listening to the heart sounds, which are the sounds of the valves opening and closing. Sounds of valves opening and closing. B. If exercise is very intense, an oxygen debt is formed. The oxygen debt results in the build-up of lactic acid in the muscles, or you can say in the blood, because it diffuses from the muscles to the blood during vigorous exercise. Outline how the body removes the oxygen debt. We solved this question before. How is the oxygen debt removed? We said in هو it is removed after exercise. It is removed after exercise. How بقى؟ Your breathing rate remains high and also the pulse rate remains high. Why is this? To provide extra oxygen that breaks down the lactic acid in the liver. How is it broken down? It is an oxidation reaction. It is aerobic respiration. يعني lactic acid أصلا it is glucose. So it's as if a glucose molecule is divided into two. So the liver uses this lactic acid and it breaks it down by aerobic respiration and converts it to carbon dioxide and water. يعني this is a simple way of saying it. Okay, question number 4. Define the term organ. What is the organ? It is a structure. هنا he gave you only 1 mark for it. So we said that it is a structure made of a group of different tissues working together to do a specific function. Always write the full definition. Sometimes he gives you 1 mark and sometimes he gives you 2. 1 for this and 1 for this. B. It is a photomicrograph of a cross-section of part of a leaf. This is the upper epidermis. Here, this layer is the upper epidermis. And then B is the palisade. C, rounded cells with spaces. So it's the spongy mesophyll. And at the end, we have the lower epidermis. Identify the tissue A. We said that it is the upper epidermis. Structure C. هنا he circled a structure. It looks like a rounded structure. And it is in the level of the spongy layer. إيه structure ده بقى? The vascular bundle, which contains the xylem and the phloem. Describe how the tissue labeled B is adapted to maximize photosynthesis. Who is B? Number 1, B, which is the palisade mesophyll layer, contains many chloroplasts for photosynthesis. This is the adaptation number 1. Also, it is located near the top of the leaf in order to absorb as much sunlight as possible. I can also say that the vacuoles inside the palisade is expanded like this. If I imagine that this is a palisade cell, the vacuoles are expanded. ليه? To push the chloroplast to the edges in order to absorb as much light as possible. يبقى الادaptations mark number 1 that I said it's the palisade mesophyll. It contains many chloroplasts. Cells are at the top of the leaf, and as I said, you can also say that the vacuoles are expanded to push the chloroplasts to the edge of the cells. State 2 substances that are transported only in the phloem. Sucrose and the amino acids are transported in phloem. Why some parts of a plant can act as both a source and a sink? Why does this happen? According to the case. For example, in summer, during the when there is a lot of light, the leaves makes photosynthesis and they produce glucose. In this case, the leaves are a source. Some of this glucose goes to the roots and is stored there. Stored. Why? Because during winter, when there is no enough sunlight, some of this stored glucose is used for respiration in other parts of the plant. يبقى in this case, in winter, the roots are the source and the leaves will be sink. يبقى why does some parts act as both source and sink? They are the source when they are doing photosynthesis, so they are the region of production, while they will be the sink when they are the region of use. You can also give him an example to explain your point. During summer, the leaves photosynthesize, so they are the source, while in winter, glucose come from what is stored in the roots, so the leaves becomes the sink, region of use. D. The effect of carbon dioxide concentration on the rate of oxygen production in the aquatic plant was measured. Effect of CO2 على rate of oxygen production. Rate of oxygen production means the rate of photosynthesis. This is what produces oxygen. The lamp was used to keep the light intensity constant. The oxygen gas was collected in a gas syringe. The plant was placed in water with a constant temperature. Question number 1. The rate of oxygen production was assumed to be the same as the rate of photosynthesis. This is not entirely accurate. ليه بقى؟ Because not all of the oxygen that is released from photosynthesis will be collected in the syringe. Some of the oxygen is used in the respiration of the plant cells. So, the rate of photosynthesis that I get will be lower than the actual rate. Again, why is the rate of oxygen production not the same as the rate of photosynthesis? Because not all the oxygen that is released from photosynthesis is collected in your syringe. Some of the oxygen is used in the respiration of the cells. So this means in the oxygen collected هيقل شوية. It's a bit lower because some of it was used. Okay. The graph بقى ادي rate of oxygen production. هنا concentration of carbon dioxide. This is a limiting factor graph. As we said before, as long as when you increase the CO2, the rate is increasing, يبقى in this part, the CO2 was the limiting factor. But what about this part? I continue to increase CO2, but the photosynthesis is not increasing. This means in the CO2 is not limiting. مش هو المشكلة. It is not the problem. أمال إيه؟ Another factor will be limiting. Maybe the light, maybe the temperature. It needs to be increased so that the photosynthesis can increase again. Okay, explain the results. إيه results دي بقى؟ What is the results that I got? Number 1. I know that since when you increase the CO2, the rate of oxygen produced increase, يبقى I can conclude in photosynthesis needs carbon dioxide. Photosynthesis needs carbon dioxide. At the beginning here, carbon dioxide was the limiting factor. Why did I say this? Because I can see that when I increase CO2, the rate of photosynthesis بيزيد. Therefore, I know that the CO2 was the limiting factor. طيب, after 500 micromole per decimeter cube, after 500 here, after 500, the CO2 is not limiting عشان الرate فضل constant. يبقى after 500, CO2 is not limiting anymore. A light or the temperature may be limiting in this part. The light or the temperature may be limiting in this part. Okay. The investigation was repeated with the same type of aquatic plant at 10 degrees Celsius. Draw a line on the figure to show the results. طبعا when you repeat the experiment at a lower temperature, you will get less rate, less steep. This is steep increase. هنا it will be less steep, and then it will be constant at a lower level. Since in the temperature is less, the photosynthesis will not be at the same activity. It will have less activity due to less activity of the enzymes. Question 5. Measles is a transmissible disease. What's the meaning of transmissible? It is caused by a pathogen that can be transmitted from one person to another. The percentage of the population that were vaccinated against measles in a country was determined. The number of confirmed cases was also recorded. Figure 5.1 shows the data that were collected between 1975 and 2010. This solid line is the number of measles cases, and the dashed line is the vaccination. هنا percentage of the population vaccinated, and this is the number of cases. Calculate the percentage change in the number of cases between 1980 and 1990. عايزة number of cases, so I'm looking at the solid line. 1980, you will go up with your ruler, determine this point. 1990, you will go up till the solid line, determine this point. And then 1990, and you will read it from here, because this is the scale for the number of cases. In 1990, برضو, you will go to this solid line and determine this point. هنا, it will be 140, and this will be 14,000. So what's the rule for the percentage change? Final number minus original number over original times 100. يبقى 140,000 minus 14,000 over 14,000 times 100. It will be 90%. Describe the data shown. In any question of description, remember 4 points. Number 1, describe the general trend. Is it increasing, decreasing? What happens? Number 2, if there is a maximum or minimum point. Number 3, if there is a slope, describe the slope. Is it a steep increase or gradual increase? Number 4, use data. Use numbers from the graph. هنا, if you want to describe, what will I say? As the number of vaccinations increased, the number of measles cases decreased. Okay? طيب, the cases decreased steeply, and then it became a constant. طب vaccinations, it increased, and then starting from here حصل بقى ايه? What do we call this part? If you get a zigzag line like this, decreasing and increasing, we call it fluctuates. يبقى ايه الدescriptions اللي احنا كتبناها؟ Number 1, as the percentage of population vaccinated increases, the number of cases of measles decrease. The vaccinations increased until 1950, and then it fluctuates. يبقى increased اهو لحد 1950, and then it fluctuates. While the measles cases decrease and then remains constant. طب what is the 4th mark? Use data. يعني ايه use data؟ استخدم numbers. هقول له مثلا ان In 1985, the number of cases was كذا, while in 1990, the number was 14,000. So it decreased by كذا. Subtract the two numbers, make a calculation to show him that you can analyze the data in the graph. This is how you use data, and of course, you must use units if there are units. Very important. If there's no units, you will not take the point. Triple I, we solved it before. How vaccination protects the people against the disease. Number 1, inject a harmless pathogen which has the antigen on its surface. This activates immune response, active immunity, where the lymphocytes produce antibodies and, most importantly, memory cells. The memory cells remains in the blood to provide long-term immunity, where it protects the body if the body is infected with the same pathogen again. B. The human body has several defense mechanisms. State 2 of the body's chemical barriers. Anything chemical, you can say the mucus, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach, or the tears. All of these are chemical barriers. Describe the process of blood clotting. Easy questions. The platelets accumulate and release chemicals. These chemicals convert the soluble fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin. The insoluble fibrin is like threads. It forms a mesh to trap red blood cells inside, and this forms the blood clot. Last question, question 6, shows a food web. State the number of trophic levels. You have to check all the food chains to ensure that you are writing the highest number of trophic level. يعني مثلا هنا this is 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, so the highest number is 4 trophic levels. Name of one organism that feeds at both the 3rd and the 4th trophic level. The hawk in this food chain, هنا 1 2 3, while in this food chain 1 2 3 4. So this means in the hawk is feeding at the 3rd trophic level in one food chain and at the 4th trophic level in the other food chain. State the name of the type of energy that is transferred between the trophic levels. The type of energy transferred is the chemical energy. Any food is considered chemical energy. The total biomass of the snakes is much less than the total biomass of the mice. The mass of snake is less than the mass of the mice. We know that as we go along the food chain, 3 things decrease: the number of the organisms, the mass, and the energy. Okay, this question is a very repeated question. It comes in different forms. Here he asked you, why is the total biomass of the snake less than the total biomass of the mice? Or he can ask you, why are the numbers of the snake less than the number of the mice? Or he can ask, why is the food chains usually not more than 4 or 5 trophic levels? All of these, they have the same answer, اللي هو إيه بقى؟ Because only 10% of the energy is transferred, while 90% is lost between the trophic levels. And then you give him example. How is it lost? It is lost as heat energy in respiration or movement. Also because not all material in the organism is eaten and not all is digested. يعني when the snakes eat the mice, they will not eat, maybe they will not eat the whole organ, maybe they will leave the head. And even the parts that are eaten, it's not all digested. This is why not all the energy in the mice goes to the snakes. And then at the end, you give him a conclusion back. So, since the snakes are at a higher trophic level than the mice, there will be no enough energy to support more biomass. Okay, last question in this test. Food shortage that results in famine can be caused by many factors. We answered this before. قبل كده he asked you what are the factors that contribute to the famine اللي هي المجاعة. We said that ممكن بقى wars, ممكن earthquakes, drought, flooding, anything can cause a famine. هنا he asked you, how does the drought cause famine? Drought is the lack of water. Lack of water destroys the crops. No water for photosynthesis. So the plants will wilt. You cannot get fruits and vegetables. Also, no food for the livestock. The animals which feed on plants will also die. Therefore, it will cause famine. There will be no food at all for the people. كده, this exam is finished. Thank you and I hope it helps.